All right, guys, so today we are back working on the Sierra, and she's getting a brake upgrade. So in front of me here, I have a pair of 2020 Silverado brakes. These are front calipers. Now, even though they kind of look it, they aren't actually Brembos. They're not really performance brakes. They're like cast steel or cast iron or something. They kind of weigh a bit. But I actually picked these up a few years back to put on my Tahoe. They never made it on. I ended up going back to stock. They wouldn't fit under the 17-inch wheels, and they've kind of been sitting around. I tried to put them on my Escalade when I had it, but the front of the caliper stuck out too far. It rubbed against the stock wheel, so I couldn't use them on that either. But I'm glad I held on to them because I think they are going to work perfectly on the Sierra here. I do already have an 1.5 inch wheel spacer. Not that that's necessary, but I know for sure they are going to clear these wheels. They're also 20-inch. I think you need a minimum of an 18 to clear these, but there are probably certain styles of 18-inch wheels that they won't clear. The biggest issue seems to be not so much the diameter, but depending on the offset, the spoke here will actually rub on the front of the caliper, so you may need to do some grinding. Also ignore that, it is not mine. You can see this one looks a little nicer than this one because I went through the effort of using a flappy disc, little cookie disc, and I completely smoothed this out. So you can see it has this kind of texture on it. I just wanted it to look a little more premium, a little more, I don't know, not rough. So I did spend the time sanding this down, then I just hit it with some Caliper paint. So we're gonna do the same on this one. If you take a look at this thing too, you'll see what I mean. This caliper, it's really fat in the front. So this is what you might end up running into, kind of rubbing against your wheel, and you're gonna need a spacer or something. Some people I have seen grind this section down because this might be the only part that rubs. I'm not gonna tell you to do it or not to do it because at the end of the day, that was put there for a reason. Most likely to strengthen this section of the caliper. And even though, yeah, you probably could shave a tiny bit off of that, I wouldn't recommend completely like grinding that down flat. I might as well be comfortable doing it. So we're looking pretty good. I don't bother doing the backs. You're not going to see them anyway. Just kind of the bottom here, the top, and then the face. All right, so after about 45 minutes of grinding, I got it smoothed out pretty good. Right now I'm just going to pull the boots off of the pistons, wrap the pistons in tape, and then we'll just be ready to spray them. Now the key to making this look good, you got to start out with just light, dusty coats, just to kind of get a base down where your thicker coats are going to be able to stick nice. And the great thing about this VHT paint, it actually dries really quick. It's really easy to work with. Like, you can lay it on pretty thick after you get a good dusting down. Also, for some reason, this paint really attracts bees. I don't know why. All right, that's pretty much tacked up. Let's go in for another coat. I got little bee feet in the finish, but what can you do? I'll lay this one down a little bit heavier. I'm not going for a complete nice finish yet. That's going to be the last coat. Trying to get coverage while keeping the coat relatively dusty. So that's basically full coverage. Got just about everything. You got to hit in here a little bit more in these little kind of cracks inside the caliper. Stuff you're not going to see anyway, it doesn't really matter. But after this dries a little bit, I'm going to hit it with one final wet coat. That's going to be kind of thick. It's going to fill in any small imperfections, and that's going to be the actual nice shiny finishing coat that we're going to see. All right, it's another 10 minutes later. This is tacked up pretty good. Now I'm just going to go in heavy and get our final coat on. That's it. I think we're there. 2 calipers, 1 can. Well, I'm gonna leave that hanging here to dry. Let's go ahead and start fitting up the driver's side. Well, it's only been a few hundred miles, but my DIY alignment doesn't seem to be too bad. So before we do anything, clearly all the old stuff has to come off. This should be pretty much a bolt-on swap. I don't know if the banjo bolt's going to be the same, but as far as the mounting bracket, the hole should be in the same position. We might have to shim the caliper over the rotor to center it with some washers, but other than that, I believe the bolts are supposed to be the same. The existing brake hose should work, and the rotor should just slide right over this. So this is a power stop kit I picked up. It came with the rotors and the pads. You can see we're going from a 13-inch rotor to a 13.5-inch rotor, so a little more diameter. But the biggest thing is going to be those calipers. So we're going from a 2-piston caliper up to a 4-piston, so they're going to clamp a lot better. Plus we have the extra surface area. It's going to be able to take more heat under heavier braking. So this should just slip right over this. We might even be able to put our little screw back in. We're gonna flip it around this way. The screw does in fact line up. Put that back. See, these were a little dirty because I test fitted them on my Escalade. There's supposed to be a video on that truck, but like I said, I couldn't get the wheel back on because the caliper was too fat in the front. I'm gonna have to wait till I get the brake back on so I can torque that down. But let's see how our caliper lines up. Now when you put these on, you gotta make sure the bleeder is at the top. That's how you know left hand from right hand. I think they're marked, but after grinding them down, that is no longer visible. The existing bolts should thread into here. It's looking good up top. Beautiful. Yeah, we're gonna need to do some spacing though, because with the caliper bottomed out against the knuckle here, the front of the caliper is hitting the rotor, so this needs to come over this way, and we're going to do that by using some washers and just spacing them between the caliper and the spindle or the knuckle. This is the exact same thing I had to do when I did Brembos, very similar to this setup, 4-piston Brembos on my Camaro. So I went to the hardware store. I picked up 8 grade 8 9/16 inner diameter washers. So these fit perfectly with the existing caliper mounting bolts. And what I did was take 2 of them, just like that. One was enough to clear, but it wasn't exactly centered, so I put 2 on the top like that. 2 on the bottom, between the caliper and the actual mounting bracket. And now our caliper is perfectly centered on the rotor. I still gotta tighten them down. I'm gonna pull them out. I'm gonna hit them with some red Loctite. It's a great thing about these brakes. Pad swaps are so easy, you just slip them out. No rubbing. Got these little tangs, they keep the pads away from the rotor when you're not hitting the brake. And lastly, we just have these little clips. They just go through the back here. All right, last step, we gotta get that hose off the old caliper and try to get it mounted up here without making a total friggin' mess. Yeah, this is gonna go everywhere. Let me see if I can, usually if you put a pry bar on the brake pedal, hold it halfway down, it'll stop the fluid from coming out. That did it. Now we don't have to worry about destroying our beautiful paint. I know technically I should be using new copper washers. I don't have any, and I gotta say, wow, the banjo bolt fits and the hose fits absolutely perfectly. I can even mount it back down where it was. What was I saying? Yeah, I don't have new copper washers, so I'm just gonna reuse what was here. If they don't leak, usually you're all right. Sometimes they just won't seal, and then you're gonna have to replace them when you go to bleed it. Just a quick Google search says these bolts need well, the banjo bolt needs 35 foot-pounds, so I'm just gonna go for it. If it leaks, I'll give it a little more, but use that as a starting point. Let's get this guy out of here. Put this bolt back in for the bracket, and then we can bleed it. Beautiful, man. That just, when it comes to stuff like this, man, GM, like, these trucks are how old? The GMT 800s, where they come out in 98, 99? And just bolt on 2020 brakes, brake hose, and everything. It's incredible. All right, for all you guys not running spacers, I know we're all dying to know if the stock wheel is going to fit on here and how much clearance we're going to have. Well, not the stock wheel, you know, it's a 20-inch, but still, the front of this caliper could cause a lot of problems for a lot of wheels. So I'm going to blast this spacer off quick. Let's just mount up the wheel raw. We'll see how much space we have. Let's try my best not to shit my nice caliper. And it clears. It clears extremely well. You have maybe closest point, like half an inch. But you can see it does look, it's pretty close. A half inch, it's going to be absolutely fine. That's plenty of space. But depending on the wheel you're running, like the wheels on the Escalade had a very flat face. There was no kind of curve out to the spoke. So these wouldn't fit on that truck without like a substantial spacer. That fits in there real nice. So I got my hose on the bleeder, got my wrench in place. I'm just going to go in the truck, pump it a bunch of times, put a pry bar on the pedal, and then come out here and break it loose to get the air out. Nothing but air. Some more air, fluid starting to flow. We're there. Down here, we're seeing any air in the line anymore. I'm just going to start it, get some extra pressure from the vacuum booster. Make sure all the air's out. Also make sure that banjo doesn't leak. Pry bar still on the pedal. Brakes are working. Banjo bolt is dry. Let's get the wheel on, take care of the other side. Beautiful. This should be the last one. Pedal feels great. Actually feels stock as far as like the height and everything goes to feel. Calling that good. Alright, I got one finishing touch I'm going to attempt here. Got these off of eBay. They're not Brembos, that's just how they sell them. But I think it'll just fit kind of on that hump there. Woo, look at that. That's a perfect fit on there, huh? A little skeptical whether or not it's going to stay on there, if the edge is going to start peeling, but beautiful. Ugh, I almost forgot this side. I think I could get in there. Yes. That just friggin' makes it. All right, test track time. All right, guys, on the road with the 2020 brakes. First of all, I gotta say, pedal feel is phenomenal. It's pretty much like stock. I don't feel anything different. They do bite a little better. Remember, this truck has a vacuum booster. It doesn't have Hydro Boost. My Tahoe with the Hydro Boost, it always stopped a lot better. But now with these brakes on here, even with the vacuum booster, just the initial bite is so much better. And I'm pretty confident. I think these are gonna lock the wheels up, which is just gonna mean we need a stickier tire. Ah, fresh brakes. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to get this thing on the highway. Maybe I'll find a service road. There's just all traffic at this time. It's a little squeak. Can't tell if that's the front or the rears. Dude! Yeah, it'll lock them up. Oh man, they're getting better and better the more they break in. There is some squeaking though, but I did go with like power stop performance brakes. So they're probably gonna be a little noisier than just like a regular ceramic pad. I put the same stuff on something similar on my Camaro, and those things just love to friggin' randomly squeal. Gotta be careful. I'm pushing my luck with my 213,000 mile glass transmission. Just getting better and better. The light stops, oh, they bite so nice. I'm really happy with the pedal feel. I was afraid I would need like a different master cylinder going to the 4-piston brakes where they wouldn't move enough fluid, or you can have a really hard pedal, but the pedal feels great. Honestly, it feels just like a stock pedal. So I have no complaints. Thought that was for me. It definitely looks like we picked up a little brake dust. That's for sure. They're warm, but I could keep my fingers on them. That's pretty good. Decal's still there. Pads look like they're wearing in pretty good. You know, something I didn't check. I completely forgot to check the brake fluid after I was done bleeding everything. We got some. I can top it off a little bit. I don't even think it's at the low mark. Nah, we're above it. Also, if you want to see more content, follow me on Facebook or Instagram. Those are the two places I post shorts. I started doing them a few times a week. Mostly a lot of the stuff that it's preview stuff for videos that are upcoming, or things that it's not worth making a video on. Like I had to do the bilge pump in my Camaro recently. I had to do a fuel pressure sensor. Little kind of repairs like that that don't make sense to put in a video. I'm putting all that stuff in shorts, so you can find those on Facebook or Instagram. But I think next we need to do something about the drums. I'm thinking maybe I could just get like a Tahoe rear end on Marketplace, because I do want to convert this to all-wheel drive, and this has a 342 in it. I want to go to a 373. So I'm going to need a rear axle, I'm going to need a front axle, and a transfer case. So I figured maybe I could get like a Tahoe rear axle that already has the brakes. Then I'll get discs. I could take the diff out. I'll get my 373. Then I'll just need to get a front axle and the transfer case, and do what I got to do with the buttons and the wiring. And then this thing will have all-wheel drive.